Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show, the Reforward Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Rebelo. I'm a 20-year-old entrepreneur who chose entrepreneurship over the traditional college path, inspired and driven by my goal to help other people in Middle America, just like my mother, learn about asset classes like multifamily real estate, to learn about and achieve financial freedom and long-lasting time freedom as well. And thankfully, she's been able to step away from her corporate job and join me full-time with Reforward Capital Partners as an entrepreneur. But I have a guest on the show that's actually requested to do a part two with me, Kevin Gardner. Actually, him and I did a podcast back in September of last year, and we both agreed on, the services that he provides. Like, this has to be a part two. And now it's finally come to fruition because I guess Father Time decided to take a break and was like, oh my God, we need to do this again. But anyways, Kevin, great to have you on the show once more, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Michael, great to be back. I'm glad we're going to finally get that second part of what we were discussing, on the air. We probably
Absolutely
left people with like not knowing what the outcome was. It was like a series, right? A TV series when they leave you hanging for 6 months.
No, right? It's like
it was
one season that's delayed.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, so for the folks that are seeing this for the first time, if you want to go check out the first part, search up Kevin Gardner on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. Also go follow him on his newsletter. And you can also see it on the Reforward Mindset Podcast on Spotify, Apple, Amazon as well. And on YouTube, you will see part one. But I won't spoil part one if you haven't seen it. But anyways, so Kevin, if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of introduce you. You're the founder of Multifamily Utility Solutions, 20 years of experience in negotiating broadband access agreements and the expansion into all utilities, including electric, gas, and water conservation. So for those that are fully operating multifamily, if you're a general partner or a key principal, these are the kind of things that you want to point out. Is how do we reduce expenses? How do we get better contracts? How do we balance these things? And Kevin really is the expert in this field. So Kevin, I do want to ask, since we last talked, I mean, it's been 6 months or so. What changes have you seen so far in your industry? Because there's so much buzz with multifamily, with different contracts coming to market, different properties coming to market. Whether it's expense increases, contract increase. There's so many things that have happened, but your boots on the ground. You're in the trenches. What have you been seeing since September of last year, all the way till now? I mean, I know it's quite the time frame, but what have you been seeing at least?
Well, let's catch people up a little bit, just a little bit. We don't want them to not watch the first part, but our core competency, as Michael mentioned, I've been in the business for longer than I care to admit, but that comes with experience then. And I used to be on the other side. I worked for Comcast, so I was negotiating with property owners. And so I know the other side of it. I know what they're looking for. I know what the providers want, and I speak their language. And again, you mentioned it, broadband access. These companies don't automatically have the right to be on your property, whether it's AT&T, Comcast, Spectrum, any of those. They don't automatically just get to be there. It's your property, it's your private property, and they're placing facilities on your property. There's value there. So we help you understand what that value is and try and generate revenue for you in exchange for granting them access to your residents, which are their customers, right? So that's where we fit in, because there's a number of different contracts you can have that will, I mean, it just comes down to what's right for you. And you've got a lot of salespeople coming at you telling you fiber this and bulk that and all these things, right? Well, maybe fiber is the best option for you. Maybe bulk is, maybe a combination thereof. But we don't know that until we can learn more about your property, your investment goals. Where do you want to go with this property? Are you keeping it for generational wealth, or are you trying to make some quick cash and be gone in 3 years, right? Those things impact the decision you make. And as we were talking earlier, right, this space is getting more and more competitive. And as it gets more and more competitive, more providers offering more services, as it gets more competitive, You've got more and more salespeople knocking on your door. Our solution's the best. Our solution's the best. Own your own system. Well, we're already on property. Let's just do bulk and you'll make more money. Hey, you need fiber. You don't have fiber yet, and fiber is the better technology, right? So who to believe, right? Who do you believe? And the answer is we help you figure that out, right? We help you make the best decision from all these different salespeople that are coming your way. Because as I mentioned, the right decision, you can have two properties right next to each other, and the right decision for one may not be the right decision for the other. Maybe this one is an A-class property, maybe this one is a B-class property. Maybe this one has 100% occupancy, maybe this one is going through renovations and has 80% occupancy. Maybe this owner is going to hold the property for a long time, and this one is just kind of in and out. Those things all impact the decision that is best for your property. It's like when you go to buy a property, right? You can't just say, well, X number of dollars per door is the same for this property and that property, because it's not, right? They can be right next to each other, and this one can have,
It can be so different.
So different, right?
Yeah.
So the solution for your broadband is also can be that different. You may in your portfolio have some under one type of contract, some under another. And that's what we do, is we try and help you sort through those different things. As I mentioned, we get, I had to remind all of our existing clients, look, you're going to have people come banging on your door. We got fiber now. You want fiber. You want your customers to have choice, which there is value to choice. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes you may have an agreement already in place that prohibits you from bringing another provider in.
You're tied down.
So you have to understand that. And that's why the second thing we do, the first thing we do is understand your business model, your investments, your properties. What are your goals? And the second thing we do is we take that list of properties and we find out, first and foremost, is there any existing agreement in place right now? Because that can create limits as to what we can do. One example I had with a client about since we spoke last. So I think it was about 2 months ago. This group bought a portfolio in Minnesota. And they had different properties in different locations. So they were served by different providers already. Somehow in another market, they had bulk on one of their properties, and they were just convinced that bulk was the right answer, and they want to bulk everything, which, it may work well for them, but we wanted to gather the facts. Well, lo and behold, we find out that one of their properties is already under an exclusive marketing agreement with one provider.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good news is there's only 2 years left in it. But the bad news, if they really want to go bulk, they have to wait for that 2 years to expire.
Right.
Or they can go to that current provider that's giving them revenue share for exclusive marketing, and they can ask them to go bulk because they're obviously already on property providing service. So they've got 3 options. Option 1, ride it out for 2 years. Option 2, or even renew if they want a longer term. Option 2 is go bulk with the existing incumbent provider, or wait 2 years and then open it up to other potential bulk providers. Because after the 2 years is up, then you're no longer obligated to continue with that exclusive marketing agreement, and you can then open it up to other providers. And so that's the option they took, because as it is, if you're going to bring a new provider in, you probably need 180 to sometime 6 months to a year to bring to negotiate the contract.
Yep.
The other provider in, allow them to wire and everything, and so you really only have a year left. So it really isn't that bad, and that's what they opted to do. So we're going to revisit it in a year. We're going to give notice that we don't intend to continue with the existing agreement after it expires, and then we're going to open it up to other providers in that marketplace and get more competitive bids. So, but that was a real life example of what just happened, where, you know, in their mind, they had one solution. And once we did our due diligence and helped them do the due diligence, we found out that, well, that if that's your goal and that's your solution, we can't get there from where we're at today. So
that is so in depth, and I love that. But you know, it really goes to show you the depths of, like, you know, it's not simple. It's like not signing up for Xfinity. It's like, all right, I got my plan, bye. It's so in depth, and I know you and your team see that frequently, where it's like you have owners that will buy properties and go, oh yeah, we just do this. Well, actually, does it fit into the plan? And that's one thing that you mentioned that I absolutely love. It's like, do you want to hold this for 3 years, or do you want to hold this for 5 to 10 years? Like, that all factors in. And there's one thing I definitely want to ask you about is, like, how is the market becoming more competitive? Because I am still a little new to all these services, but for the past 6 months, how are they becoming more competitive? Is it because of new technologies, new AIs? Are there more businesses just starting to come to the surface and go, well, we could probably provide the same thing? And not only that, you have to sit there and decipher all of it to see, okay, this particular owner wants to hold it for X amount of years for X reasons. And now my list went from this to this. It's like, how do you juggle all of that? How is it becoming competitive? I guess is first question. And secondly is, how are you able to weed through all of that and not lose your head in the process to go, this is chaotic, but at least staying at an organized level. So I guess the first question we'll stay with is, how is the market becoming more competitive? What are you seeing? Is it new companies, new technologies? What do you got?
yes, it is.
Select all that apply. Yeah.
So you've got in most cases, you've got the incumbent, what we used to be called a cable provider, right? Comcast, Spectrum, Cox Communications, Mediacom, the traditional cable, what was first video services before broadband was even introduced. I know you don't remember that. I'm old enough to remember that. But there was a time, believe it or not, when broadband didn't exist, Michael. So, you know, they then morphed into being able to carry broadband, and broadband's a great business. So the former phone companies like AT&T, Brightspeed now, but it used to be Lumen or CenturyLink before that, and these folks, they took their telephone wire, and initially, if you remember, that was one of the first connections to the internet was through DSL. Obviously,
right, yes.
Obviously, that is not going to support the technologies and the needs we have today. So they saw that, and they have over time been the ones to place fiber. So AT&T still has DSL in some locations, but over time, as they're investing in properties, they're investing in expanding and making fiber broadband service available. So they're growing the fiber footprint. In the meantime, there's electric co-ops out there who oftentimes serve the rural areas, and they're now expanding because they're funded by their users, by their customers, or as they call them, their members. And they've seen where they need fiber, so they're expanding to create fiber networks out there. And then you've got independent companies that are just coming in and getting franchises and building fiber networks, MetroNet, and then you've got the smaller guys that are doing some of these things like Hotwire, and there's just I've got a long laundry list. It just depends on where you're at, because not every one of these is available in every market, right? So traditionally, you've got one of the cable operators, the former cable operators, like a Comcast or a Spectrum, and then you've got a telephone company as well, like a Brightspeed or an AT&T, who now both provide fiber service. And then many times you have a third party as well. And so that's what we have to do, is we have to first step we do is what's the name of your property and what's your address, so we can do our homework and figure out who is in that marketplace, who could potentially be providing service already. And then we go and we ask them, can you verify if you're providing service, and if so, do you have an agreement in place? So that's our starting point. And from there we go and do our assessment. Keep in mind, all this that we're talked about so far, because we work on commission, we only make money if you make money. All this legwork that we're doing is part of our initial assessment.
Interesting. And when you're doing this assessment, because obviously you have like the preliminary, the start of it, and then you start to really dig, what kind of questions do you ask like an owner operator to go, well, if you want a bulk or a broadband service, or, whatever you're looking for, what are the kind of the top key indicators that you look for to kind of give you a general rough sketch of what they're looking for? So how do you determine that? Like, what kind of questions do you ask them?
Class of property is important, right? We see that bulk service is more appealing and makes better financial sense to A-class properties, because that tends to appeal to residents who are more focused on amenities and a little less price sensitive. Whereas if you go down to a C-class property or a low B, they're more like, I just want to know what my rent is, right? They're more sensitive. You got a fitness center, that's great. I don't care. I'm not worried about that. You got a pool, that's nice, but what's my rent, right?
Yep.
And what's in, and so those are some of the things initially that we start with. We also ask if they've heard of bulk and whether they've considered it, whether they have it in any of their other properties. We also ask, are you trying to build a portfolio that you're going to hold on to for quite some time, pass down to the kids and the next generations, or are you a syndicator and you have other people's money that you have to refinance and sell this thing in 3 to 5 years and pay them and buy them out? Because
right.
those will also impact, what types of decisions. If you're going to sell a property in 3 years, bulk is still maybe not, right? So some people love it, some people hate it. I got one client who just says, I don't care what the class of the property, I don't want it. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to be the cable provider. I don't want them, bugging me about it. I don't want that liability, that expense liability, even if I can make more money. I was around during COVID and we didn't know if we were going to get our rent, let alone a payment for, internet service, right? So for different reasons, they have different feelings about those things. And that's just one of the, some of those things that we have to, do you really want to sell a property to somebody? Or do you want to sell a property that's got a bulk already in place? Maybe the new owner or maybe a potential buyer doesn't want that. Because if you don't have bulk, you can usually get bulk easier than you can get out of bulk, if that makes sense, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So it's easier to get into it than it is to get out of it once it's there.
Right. It's like once you're in, you might as well just stay in. Now, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we just want to find out. We want to make, no two clients are the same. No two properties are the same. No two recommendations that we give are going to be the same. It's important for us because we're in this for the long haul. I recommended to a client earlier today, here's the proposal, here's the agreement, and we would have made money. I recommended that they didn't sign the deal. I just didn't think for the downside to it that it was worth it. And I explained to them why, and they agreed. And, they'll come back to us or we'll come back to them later. And we've got a good relationship because it's not just about making $1 on every property. It's about building a relationship that's going to help us. We're investing in the client and the relationship. And once we have that established, then the money will happen.
Right? Absolutely. You'll attract it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our business philosophy. I always say to our folks, we're in it for the long-term relationship, not the short-term payoff.
Absolutely. And you know what, Kevin, that's for a certain, like a company provider like yours, it's very rare to see something like that where, you'll have a lot of people that are very transactional based, where they could care less about the relationship. They just want the check. But you're absolutely right. If you're in this for the long haul, you don't want to do business with someone that's like, when you pick up the phone, you go, oh no, it's so and so. You actually want to have a genuine relationship and help them because they also potentially want to help you. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, for me, bringing capital to the table, I've said no to investors. I've said no to deals because I stood to make a lot of money, but it didn't make sense. It wasn't in alignment. And that's very important, especially with your business philosophy. I think that's huge. It's just to be in alignment and just to be honest to say, we could pursue this, but it may not work on both ends. And that's huge. That's super important. I think a lot of people don't do that nowadays, which is a shame. But it's glad to know that there's a bright spot in the world.
Well, it's about providing value, right? It's the overall value that they're getting. It's not, a
Yep.
transaction based. We have clients that we've been dealing with for, a long time, and they're the ones that are calling us up and saying, hey, we just bought this new property. What can you do for us? So we're getting new properties in all the time. Or, hey, we just sold this property. I want to introduce you to the new owner. And, they're giving us referrals. And that's all because we do it right. And, we're not focused on every single dollar. We're focused on the relationship.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that because I resonate with that so well. It's like, yes, it's the relationship because if you build a relationship, if it's an honest relationship, the money will come. It will just be attracted. It's like, what's supposed to say? Stop chasing the butterflies, build a garden to attract them. I think that's what it is.
I like that.
Yeah. And, Zig Ziglar said it himself. If you want to get anything out of this world, you have to help others get what they want. And that's kind of what you're doing for multifamily operators. But to transition to the operator standpoint, Kevin, what is, I guess, one of the biggest mistakes that you see some potential clients make when they go for a service? Like maybe before they met someone like you, let's say they went with a service prior and they're like, oh, I don't know how to back out of this. So I guess what is the biggest mistakes that you see in the industry that happen quite frequently?
Yeah, I can't disclose where this happened, but I can disclose that, we had a client say, here's a property that we bought a couple years ago. What can we do there? And we did our due diligence and our research, and we found out that they had not only an exclusive marketing agreement, but a non-exclusive marketing agreement. So they had two agreements, both signed. They signed one, the prior owner signed the other one. And they're like, well, what's wrong with that? One's exclusive, one's non-exclusive. I'm like, have you been in a relationship? Do you have a wife? Try and tell your wife, who you're in an exclusive relationship with, that you now want to have a non-exclusive relationship with somebody else. It doesn't work that way, or at least it's seldom, may work that way. So
Right.
It's just, unknowingly, without doing the due diligence and doing the research, they've put themselves into situations that, quite frankly, were, not, they put themselves in violation of a prior agreement by not knowing that there was a prior agreement in place. And that's why we do that as the first step. Let's find out about any agreements that may be in place.
Absolutely. And for operators that are just learning about this, let's say brand new operator and they want to install this kind of a service on their property. Like let's say it's internet, let's say it's television, cable, doesn't matter. What questions should a new operator ask, or at least maybe things that they should look for to at least be well versed on maybe previous contracts? Like what happened with the previous contracts? Like, what should I look for? What should I avoid? What should I go to? Or do they just call Kevin? So what do you think they should do?
Our preference would be that, just call us or email us and let us dig into it for you, because especially if it's a new property, you got a ton of other things on your plate, right? And this is what we do every day. So we're going to be more efficient. We have the contacts already in place. You're going to be digging for contacts and all that. So we would prefer that. But here's the one thing. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody who's just bought a property and they've said there's no contract in place. And I said, how do you know that? And they said, well, the prior owner didn't give what's one. Okay, well, we have found repeatedly there's existing agreements in place, right? Maybe the prior owner owned the property for over 20 years, and there was a one-piece agreement, a one-page agreement that didn't get filed at the courthouse or something like that. But the property or the provider has it, you know. It's just, and then the other one is, the common thing is, well, we already have a provider, so why do we need anything? You know, there's already a provider. Well, are they under contract? Is their contract expired? Are you getting any revenue from them? What type of a contract is it? And a lot of people don't realize that they have the right to get revenue from the providers that are on their property. You know, a lot of them just think, oh, well, people sign up if they want it, and that's it. But if you do little things like helping the providers, say it's Spectrum, you know, if you're, you know, handing out new flyers, or, you know, you've got something in your lobby or anything like that to help them promote their product, that's called exclusive marketing, and you can get compensated in return for that. So those are all the things that maybe somebody is not aware of, that they could, you know, that could be available to them without that much effort. Really, our system's pretty turnkey. We don't need a lot from the owners to, you know, sometimes there's some mobile home communities are famous for this, especially in lot numbers and address lists, and trying to reconcile and things like that can be more complicated. Seldom have that issue when it's related to apartment buildings, but or newer mobile home communities, or mobile home communities in certain areas. Mobile home communities in Alabama, Tennessee, some of those are challenging because they didn't always have, you know, some of them had box numbers and not real addresses. So that's the only time that it tends to take a little bit longer and involve more of the owner helping us sort through that. But otherwise, we need a few things, and we try and make it as turnkey as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's such a benefit too, you know, because you already have the property owner trying to manage the property, and then you're managing the service for the property. So to have that turnkey, and to basically, you're an expert in your field, they're an expert in their field, to have that turnkey, there's so much value there. And it makes sense too. I mean, if you just like hand over and say, like, you know, hey, this is what we've built, this is what we found, and then come to agreement and then start working together, I think that's huge. Right. Sometimes you don't see that happen often.
Well, you don't want your general practitioner also doing your dental work.
Exactly.
We're the dentist. That's
exactly, yeah.
Do this. So let us do that, and you focus on the rest of the stuff.
Right. And I guess lastly, the question I would ask is kind of address the elephant in the room. AI is everywhere. I mean, it's influencing a lot of internet changes, you know, bandwidth changes. It's, you know, causing more delegation, you know, so much uprising and new technologies. How is, and I'm not sure if it's affecting it drastically, but I'm sure you and your company are slowly implementing it, or at least adapting to it. How is AI influencing at least the competition, the demand, or maybe even helping or detracting business from your standpoint?
You know, honestly, the AI doesn't take up that much more bandwidth or anything. So it doesn't impact what residents need, or what, you know, to use it, you just use your normal bandwidth connection. So there's not a lot of extra needs associated with AI. So we, you know, we use it operationally, right? You know, we use it to check our newsletters, and, you know, whatever other questions,
right,
automate certain systems that we have. But that doesn't change how we market. We're still, you know, it might affect the messages we're sending slightly, but it doesn't affect who we're sending them to, or, you know, how we still need to have interaction with the companies to try and negotiate these agreements and find out if there are any agreements. And we still need to have communication with our clients to understand what their investment goals are and you know how long they're going to hold these properties and things like that. So those certain things that AI can't help us with. And at this point in our business, we have more things that AI can't help us with than we have that it can.
I love that. Just laying it out straight. I love that. Thank you so much, Kevin. And unfortunately, we are just coming up to our time. But Kevin, you know, obviously in part one, you dropped your information, but how can, what's that?
Part three.
Yeah, right. Part three. I mean, why not? Just keep it going because I know this industry is going to change.
It is.
Yeah, it's like Epcot. It's never going to be finished. It's never just going to stop. I mean, it's like under it. It's just going to keep going and going.
Yeah.
But Kevin, for people like new operators or current operators or seasoned operators, how can they reach out to you and your company to pick your brain up from the professional standpoint of, whoa, I didn't even realize this existed. I didn't even realize that broadband and bulk and all of these things existed. I'm over here paying so much, number one. Number two, does this even make sense? So how can they reach out to you and how can they utilize your services?
Sure. We're Multifamily Utility Solutions and add the .com. You can find our website there. Kevin at Multifamily Utility Solutions, info at multifamilyutilitysolutions.com. And yeah, that's what we do a lot of. We educate people, right? I've educated people who didn't have enough business for us at that time, but by educating them, they came back later and said, hey, I've got more properties now, let's talk. And so we don't mind doing that. We do the free assessment. We can help you understand, you know, if you were new to a card game, right? You'd never played euchre before and you got 5 cards dealt to you, or you never played poker before. You have 5 cards dealt to you. Okay, that's your assets right there, right? We can help you learn how to play those cards in the game. And we don't charge unless you win.
I love that. It's like, it's not even the aspect of money, but it's the educational part. And to add on to that, when, like in my position, bringing capital to the table to close a multifamily deal or to raise money for it, it's always education first, because it's like, I don't want you to get into this business uneducated. I at least want you to have a glimpse, an idea of this is how it is. Like, here's the playbook, and this is what I do. This is how I fit in. This is how you could fit in. So I love the fact that you and your company are so education first. It's like, well, you have all of this. Do you know how to use it? Well, let me teach you.
Well,
so
we're not the salespeople who are only telling you the pros. We are the education people who, for every option you have, are listing the pros and the cons. We're here to educate. We're not here to sell.
I love that. You know, it's philosophies like that that indirectly make tons more than just selling all day long.
Yeah, we think so. We think it's the right thing to do.
And I believe so. And I endorse it. That's great. Ladies and gentlemen, for those that are listening, if you want to follow Kevin Gardner online as well, along with his company, please check the description below. You'll be able to see, follow him on social media like LinkedIn and Facebook as well. And also join his newsletter and check out his website. I mean, I've spoken to Kevin before. I've seen him in some of the multifamily networks, and he's got so much value to provide. And if whether you're passive or active, please join the mailing list, because I've learned so much from his emails and all that, his content and his company. So please, I highly recommend you do. Go follow him, give him a couple of likes, comments, and reposts, and go share the love. But anyways, build yourself better and bigger every day. Live better, live bigger. Always move ever forward. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you got so much value out of this. And Kevin, thank you so much for coming back on, my friend, for part 2. And you know what? We're going to have to do another part 3 because there's so much value still that we have to tap into. This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.